Hello friends and welcome back to Cine Club. Today we're going to talk about Incredibles 2. You know, that movie you've been waiting for more than 10 years? Was it worth the wait? If what you were waiting for was pretty much the same movie, give or take a few scenes, then yeah, it was worth the wait. So it's been more than 14 years for us humans, but in the Incredibles world, no time has passed since the very end of the last movie. They pick it up right where they left it off, with the Underminers showing up and the Incredibles putting on their mask and getting ready to fight crime, and you get a pretty good sense that their story is completed, that they're gonna keep fighting crime, and it's gonna be a happily ever after for this family. So why are we bringing up the same problems that we had in the first movie when we have already kind of resolved them? We go back to the same issues where supers are not legals, and Helen doesn't want them to be fighting crime because they need to follow the law, and Mr. Incredible wants to keep being incredible because that's the only thing he knows how to do, and so we're back to the same darn issues that we had already kind of discussed and sort of resolved in the first movie. And while we get to see the characters that we know and love, it doesn't feel like they're bringing a lot of new elements to the story that seems all too familiar already. It kind of feels like that ex that you broke up with and you really don't have any beef with them. It was a wonderful experience, and they come back about 15 years later and they're like, hey, remember me? We used to have really great times. Remember how much fun we had? How happy you were when we were together? All the great times. You remember those amazing times? They were great, weren't they? And you're like, yeah, it was definitely great, but you know, it's been about 15 years and a lot of things have happened in my life since then. I've seen and explored many different things, and possibly even better things than what you and I had together. And while our memories are definitely precious, I've just lived through so many other beautiful, incredible things, pun intended. And so you coming back into my life now feels a little bit not important, irrelevant, too little too late. And while Pixar has done this before, they've had sequels come out with a huge gap in between the two movies, this one just feels not as great because, for example, in Toy Story, the timeline had moved on with them. You know, Andy had grown up, there was a different purpose for the toys, they needed to know where they were going to go next. Here, it's right after the very first movie, like you could watch them back to back and not a breath is lost in between them. So for us who've been 14 years without them, suddenly just feels a little like, oh, okay. And then if you're gonna do that, bring something really new. The problem is that The Incredibles 2 has come out in a time where we have been overly saturated with superhero movies. The first Incredibles movies came out in 2004, so the huge wave of superhero movies was just in front of us. It hadn't really hit us yet. And it was really fun to have that sort of retro look at superheroes, kind of like old superhero TV shows. And the idea that they were gone and coming back, it was a very clever idea. Now, after 20 plus superhero movies with very similar structures and stories, Incredibles 2 just feels a little bit lost and unnecessary. And talk about similar structure and a story that is completely predictable. Oh, you're telling me Bob is still gonna be fighting and struggling with the fact that he can't be a superhero out in the day and not have any consequences? I don't believe it. And you're telling me Helen has a problem with him doing whatever he wants and trying to teach her kids moral structure? No freaking way. And then you're telling me that this really mysterious company is gonna come in and be super big fans of superheroes and want to help them out, and that probably is too good to be true? Gasp. And then things are gonna go wrong and one of our heroes is gonna be in danger, and now the whole family is obligated to show their super cool powers together and fight crime? I did not see that coming. So for Brad Bird to say that he's been waiting for the perfect story to do a sequel for The Incredibles just feels a little bit not true. I don't know what he was waiting for, to be completely honest. This is almost the same movie. And on top of that, we already know the parents pretty well. We know their stories, we know their struggles. The fun part were the kids in the first movie. They had these nice story arcs that were very interesting to watch. Violet needed to come out of her shell. Dash, very much like his dad, was struggling with wanting to be everything he could be, but having to hold back. And Jack, well, Jack is just fun. And for a movie that is almost 2 hours long, I feel like they could have used so much more for these characters and they just didn't. Violet pretty much fails the Bechdel test all the way through, although I don't know if it's the Bechdel test if she's talking to other male characters, but pretty much that's what's going on. Dash is super annoying throughout the whole movie. And Jack, well, Jack was pretty funny. And trust me, the whole Jack raccoon thing was hilarious, and everything with him, of course, was great. But if you're just using that too much to make your movie funny, then maybe you needed to compensate in other areas. Also, another thing, this is not a huge spoiler, but we need to discuss this. Do we really not know that Jack has superpowers? At the end of the movie, the audience knows. and the parents are there when Jack transforms. But they make it a huge deal in this movie that Jack has no superpowers and they had no freaking idea. And maybe you can get away with it at least once by saying, oh, I had no idea, you have superpowers, and you have that great moment. But they go on and on throughout the whole movie that nobody knew Jack had superpowers. And to me, that is mind-boggling, because in the very last scene of The Incredibles, Jack burst into flames in front of everybody. I mean, sure, he's, I don't know, 100 feet away and being carried by the villain, but I think if you are the parent, you see the villain ascending with your child in their hands, and suddenly the place where your child was is a ball of flames, I would think that you thought something was up. And so for you to tell me now that nobody noticed how Jack turned into a ball of fire and then into a red monster that pummeled the villain, what? Are you serious? Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great fun. It just feels kind of pointless right now to have an Incredibles 2 movie and possibly a third sometime soon, or in the next 15 years, who knows. Maybe Pixar works like eclipses. I don't really know how they do this. Overall, I thought the movie was good. What I'm doing is nitpicking. I think a lot of people will do that, but in the end, they'll tell you that it's worth watching. Not the best that Pixar has ever done, but to be fair, The Incredibles was never my favorite Pixar movie. Also, there are 2 curse words and some alcoholic beverages, so I've heard some parents are very upset that this wasn't a child's movie, but what are you gonna do? I mean, never mind the deeper message that people are addicted to technology, and so are children. We have no idea how to live or interact without it nowadays, but you know, 2 curse words, that'll definitely get you. Anyways, you guys, that is just my opinion. Let me know, what did you think about Incredibles 2? Do you think it's weird to have such a large time gap between 2 sequels? Did you care at all? Does it matter? Let me know in the comment section down below. Or if you want, you can also let me know on social media. If you look for Cineclub channel, I am pretty much everywhere. Thank you so much for listening, guys. It's always appreciated if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more videos. And I will see you on our next movie date. Bye!